Do you want to?
Okay. Thanks everyone, and welcome to our April call for the CARCC Emerging Centers track. Just a quick review for folks who are joining us maybe for the first time. CARCC is the Campus Research Computing Consortium, advancing the frontiers of research by improving effectiveness of professionals in RCD positions, their career development and visibility, and their ability to deliver services, resources for researchers. As you can see in the slide, we've got multiple tracks. This track is one of them, but also data facing, systems facing, researcher facing, and soon a strategy and policy facing track, which we will expect to see some folks come and join us to talk about what they'll be doing soon. They also field a number of working groups to help improve activities across our profession and help develop our understanding and professionalization within the sector. And then there's the operations group that sort of runs everything and makes sure that things go smoothly. CARCC is a year-round remote conference with a set of tracks that focus on these different topics. And in our emerging centers group is a community for organizations that are developing, for leaders that are sort of picking up and making their way and figuring out how to deal with issues of, sort of establishing centers, maintaining and creating sustainability. And one of the things that we'll be talking about today is the new challenges in recruiting a workforce and retaining them and making sure that our development efforts work really well. And to that end, we've enlisted Shelley, Knuth, and Wong. Jane and I saw a panel that they were members of that was a really great representation of the activities that they had recently gone through, and we thought that their experiences would be very beneficial to the emerging centers community to talk about what they've gone through recently and what they see as sort of current state. So I think I can pass the mic over to Jane since you've got the slides.
Yep, and I am going to pull that up if I can find it. There's my desktop. Sorry, I guess by the time that the pandemic's over, I'll have figured out all of these technologies and where to share. Nope, that's nope. Sorry. If I just closed it. Like. Trying to close all my stuff so that God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see my presentation now? No? Yep. Okay. I'm going to skip past that, but I really liked the title of that panel. It was called It Worked. Like Rich said, both Kim and Shelley talked about a couple of things that worked over the last year or so, and they both focused on their talent and recruiting and how they're making things better. So this is Shelley. Shelley, do you want to go ahead and you can talk to your slide a little bit?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shelley Knuth. I'm the Director of Research Computing. I'll just state that even though Rich does not pronounce the K in his name, I do pronounce the K in mine, which is clearly the
everybody has to be different, right?
Yeah. So we've gone through a fair amount of overturn in the last year plus, but it's been I brought this up as part of it worked. So, it hasn't all been bad, but I know that we're not the only ones that have gone through this. So if I can share any insights about what's worked for us, I'm more than happy to. So just to give you sort of a sense of the challenges that we've faced, as many of you know, Thomas Hauser was the director of our research computing group at CU Boulder up until last year, and he parted ways and went to NCAR. And so we went through a national search. They put me in as interim director, and then we went through a national search, and I eventually got the position. But that started, Thomas leaving started a chain reaction of events that led to a lot of overturn in the group. And I was sort of warned about that from our HR person, that anytime you have a leadership change, you're going to experience a lot of leadership change down the chain. And she was very right about that. And in addition to our director leadership changing, the CIO, who is my boss, that position overturned about a month before Research Computing's leadership position overturned. Then when Thomas was leading the group, we had 2 associate directors, and then so one for our user support team and one for our technical team, and then staff underneath them. And I was one of those associate directors, and Jonathan Anderson, who some of you know, was the other. And so obviously my position overturned, and then Jonathan left a few months later. And then we also added 2 new services into our group. So we have like 4 associate directors who are all completely new. We have a completely new director. We have a completely new CIO. So there's one big overturn that we've experienced. And when I took over last year, we had 11 people in our group, and we now currently have 20, and we're still hiring, and we're going to end up probably around 27 when all is said and done. So there's a lot going on. And of those original 11, we had 6 of them turn over. 7 of them turn over. I always say 6 and 7 that turned over. 2 stayed in the group. I was one of them, and another person changed positions in the group. But that's a lot of turnover. That's a lot for one group to go through in 12 months time. It hasn't even been quite 12 months time at this point. It's about 11 months. And we also brought in 2 new services into our team. So secure research computing, and then we brought with it our campus cloud service. So we have a whole new leadership team. We have new people who are supporting new services. We have people who are new to CU Boulder and new to our group, and in some cases new to HPC computing in general. And by the way, the pandemic is still going on, or it's over, depending on your vision. But we're all living in this new world where some of us are remote and some of us are in person, and most of us are hybrid of some form. And we're trying to figure that out. And the campus is trying to figure out how we're going to work together moving forward. So that sets the stage for some of the complexities that we've been facing at CU. And then here I come as the brand new bright-eyed director trying to keep my arms around this entire situation. And then my house burns down. And so we've all got this giant thing going on in our lives that is kind of complicated. But it's a positive thing. As I said, what worked? Well, the hiring process, we've actually been really successful in all the hiring that I just laid out for you. We've not only have we been able to fill those positions, but we have been able to fill them with the right people. And both of those things can be challenging, especially if you feel like you're under the gun. And some things that I think we have done to make sure that we're hiring the right people and that we're still getting those hires in the door. The first, and I think arguably the most important, is that we're taking the time to do it right. And this has meant a lot of time on our parts, time that we don't necessarily have, because the one other thing we're also doing is we have a new system. Our new supercomputer is coming online in about 2 weeks. And so we've been dealing with that. We've also had another piece of infrastructure that was funded by NSF that came online within the last few months too. So there's all this other stuff going on. We're building out the secure research enclave. So we don't really have time, and it takes a lot of time to interview candidates, but we're taking the time to do that. And then we're iterating on the process, and we're working closely with HR to make sure that the interview process, which is still currently remote, is looking good for the candidates, but it's also giving us the information that we need to make sure that we're getting the right people in there. And, you know, and I can talk about some of the iterations we've gone through, but we've definitely been adjusting a lot over time. Another big thing is, you know, we have the hiring process, and that's important, but it can get easy to lose the next step, which is now that you have all these people on your team, they're all new to each other, they're new to the group, they're new to the university. Some of them, like I said, are new to high performance computing in general. So how do you manage that? And some of the things that we've been doing as either a team or leadership or myself, one of them is, you know, making sure that we're making time for one-on-ones. And this is, you know, first of all, it means our direct reports, but I've started instituting twice annual 30-minute one-on-ones with everybody on the team, which largely means the people who aren't directly reporting to me, to talk with them, to see how things are going. It's kind of it's like a listening tour, basically, where I'm just, you know, hearing anything that's going on. And I just completed the second one of these within the last few months. And it's been interesting as we were going through so much overturn, the difference between that overturn, some of the comments I was hearing then versus now, when we're still hiring, but we're adding positions rather than backfilling positions for people that have left, which is a distinct but important difference. So I think those individual one-on-ones are important. And I think, you know, I have individual one-on-ones with my direct reports every 2 weeks, but I meet with them every week. We talk frequently. I meet with my boss every week. That connection point really makes a difference, I think, especially when we're remote, but also especially when we're all getting to learn who we are. We went through an HR intake early on in the process when we were starting to go through so much overturn, and we wanted to make sure that we were still remote at that time, and we wanted to make sure that we were finding the best ways to be a cohesive team. So we had some people from HR come in, and they talked with everybody in the group, and they made some recommendations to me and the leadership team about some ways that we could bring more team cohesion. And so we're still working on that. We still have a few things that we're planning. That was almost a year ago at this point that we did that. But one of the things that I think was a lot of fun, and that's mentioned next year, is appreciation gatherings. And last year, our team took off an afternoon, and we went to one of the go-kart mini golf things. And, you know, we all just kind of did our own thing. We did some batting cages and stuff, but the real fun was the go-kart track. And we all, you know, were racing each other on the go-kart track, and they all thought it was really funny to take me out and throw me over onto the grass barrier because, you know, I guess, and they're still talking about this. Like, this is still a relatively common conversation in the hallways. Even though at this point, like, there's a lot of people that are new that weren't there when we did that. So, but we've been having these appreciation gatherings because I think that gets lost too. When you hit a milestone, you know, it's important to acknowledge that. And so we're about to have another milestone in our group in terms of our new system coming online. So we're doing a big event to celebrate Alpine, our new supercomputer that's coming online. So and all the hard work that went into that. So those appreciation gatherings are important. Strengths exercise, these are additional things that we're doing. We had a leadership team retreat back in October once all the new leadership team members were on board. And it was just the 4 or 5 of us. And we didn't do any trust falls, but it was a trust fall like experience where we did the Clifton strengths and had individual one-on-one meetings with all of us. And since there was only 5 of us, it wasn't that time consuming, but we you know, talked about our results and talked about how, you know, this is how I show up when there's conflict, or this is how I show up when I'm trying to solve a problem, that kind of a thing. And it really, we still refer to that. You know, I'll say, you know, here's here's how I am showing up right now. I'm the kind of person who talks through problems. So forgive me here for a second while I ramble a little bit to get to the point. And I say that, and they know what I'm talking about because we went through this strengths exercise. And that was just with the leadership team. We're about to conduct that with the whole team here soon, now that our whole team isn't quite here yet, but we're more whole than we were back in October. And something I didn't even put here, but feedback, I think, is really key. I think people, you know, and it's important to acknowledge that everybody receives appreciation and recognition in different ways, but I don't know anybody that really doesn't like to hear from their supervisor that they're doing a good job. Sometimes it's about whether you do that publicly or not, but I think we've been very careful isn't the right word, but deliberate is the right word. We've been very deliberate about how we're providing feedback. And so we have a Slack channel that's all about kudos. Our university has set up this thing called Kazoo, where you can give compliments to different people. We just, you know, any chance I get, I talk about how great the team is. And I think that really helps with team cohesiveness. We're still working out, so flexible work environment, we'll get to that in a second, but we're still working out what it means to be remote and how to properly work out those team cohesions. But I think engaging with the team is important. And then finally, I think under what's worked for us, this flexible work environment has been key. And, you know, it goes beyond just saying we're willing to hire people that are remote. I think that that's part of it. And that's a large part of it in the new world that we're in. But it's also about acknowledging that, you know, and Boulder has gone through a few additional traumas, but whether or not you live in Boulder, we've all gone through a lot of personal challenges in the last couple of years with the pandemic. And for some, you know, for people that looks different. For some, it's been about having to adjust to working remotely and having young children. For some, it's having to adjust while taking care of parents. For some, it's been, you know, if they live alone, it's been the loneliness that can come with that. For extroverts, it's about not having the connection points. So there's all kinds of different things that are going on. And so managing that stress and acknowledging that that stress exists is really important. And I think it's really great for us to say, we have a flexible work environment and you should go and take the time that you need to do what you have to do. But I also equally think that as managers, we don't always live by that example. So what we've been very careful about trying to do is to you know, show that we're following that too. So I've been taking some time off in the last couple of weeks to deal with some of the things from the fire I just went through. And I've been very clear with my team that I need to take this time off and that it's for my mental health and that it's you know, important to do that. And they see that. And I hope that then they feel that with whatever they might be going through, that they can also take that time off. And I encourage people, you know, to take a lunchtime walk. And I see my associate directors will also say, I'm taking a lunchtime walk. And then their staff will see, gee, you know, my boss is out there taking a lunchtime walk. You know, maybe it's okay if I do that too. So I really think, you know, talking the talk and walking the walk has really been working for us. And I have to say, I mean, we've gone through a lot in the last year, but this team is amazing. They're doing so much. And I'm so impressed. And it's not just the output that they're doing, but it's the way that they're engaging with each other, the way that they've stepped up as they've had to get to know each other and all of that. And I think it's been good. So we're not totally there yet. We've still got a good 7 more positions we need to hire. So you'll be seeing more job ads for me soon, but I think we're on a good track.
That's great. Thank you, Shelley. I love the word intentional. when you said, the things you're doing are obviously very intentional. And I think the staff, all of us appreciate it when our leadership is thinking and planning for these things. It's a lot easier to do things off the cuff, and I'm guilty of that. And I like the fact that you really put a lot of thought into it. I think we have some time if people want to ask questions, or we can just go ahead with Kim and we can answer questions maybe at the end if you're still going to be on here. I would like, if you don't mind, sending us what strengths program you used. I think that it doesn't sound like it was the Strengths Finder one, like
no, it's
one we all did like 8 years ago or whatever. That
I think it was Clifton Strengths. Let me.
Yeah, and we can do that afterwards. But yeah. So it's like, yeah. So I think we'll just kind of wait for some questions and let Kim has a little bit of a different slant on how he's retaining his staff, and really interesting. But then we'll have a good discussion, I'm sure, after we hear from Kim. So I'm going to move on to the next. Oh, Annalee raised her hand.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Thank you
so much, Jane. I was interested in the appreciation gatherings. Was there time carved out to like intentionally express appreciation, or was it really just getting together, like providing a space for people to enjoy themselves as a form of appreciation, as a recognition of their efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this was something that our central IT organization did. Our new CIO was very deliberate about making sure that all of the units within central IT carved out space for a recognition gathering and then some time off. So we all, every one of the individual units had their own individual gathering with their team. So we did the golf cart thing. There was another group that did laser tag. And there was another group that did I think they had like an ice cream social. I'm not sure because I wasn't in their groups, but we were, we specifically told our team, we're taking this afternoon. This is approved above my head. And then we actually had time off the next day as sort of a gift for what we had done. So it was a very intentional thing. Some of that was that specific appreciation gathering. That was probably more of a one-off. Some of the other things we're doing, so like I said, we have this new supercomputer coming online. I'm taking the team out to lunch, but the next week we're having a big gathering with very fancy people that are coming, and the CIO and the COO and local officials and all this that are coming to just celebrate this event and acknowledge that. So it's a little bit of a mix, but it's not it's 6 p.m. on a Friday kind of a thing. It's in the middle of the workday.
But it's not like some people are gathering and having to express. We really appreciate your work on this project or that effort or whatever. That's not happening.
Well, the event that we're having in a couple of weeks will definitely be that. We appreciate Research Computing for everything that you've done. The go-kart thing, no, it was just, we appreciate, this is to acknowledge everything we've gone through in the last year. We're going to take this time and we're going to, do this thing, but nobody said any words or anything there. And the lunch we'll do, I might say, thank you for everything, but it's not going to be an award ceremony or anything.
Great, thank you.
Tony, I think Tony Elam from University of Kentucky had his hand raised. I love this.
Hi, Shelley. How are you doing?
Hey, Tony.
My question has to do with competition with salaries and with industry. So first of all, I'd like to say that hiring people and bringing on the right people, even if they're remote, works great. We've been able to acquire several good people that are not local. So definitely want to do that. But one of the big problems that we are now having, and we've recently lost a couple of our key staff because industry salaries, they were just offered significant increases that at this time, we're attempting to resolve and get better support. But obviously you had tremendous staff growth. So was that an issue for you? Did you have to do special justifications with your upper administration to get the proper salary levels to be able to compete with industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we have not been immune to the competition with industry. We've lost a couple of people to industry in the last year or so. Excuse me. And we've lost a couple of candidates that we had, hoped to hire for the same reason. Having said that, I think that I'm not even sure. I think we lost one candidate to an industry competition, but other than that, that hasn't been that big of a deal, but we have lost a few people. And what I'll say is that I think there's a couple things that benefit us. One of them is that we have these very lovely mountains that I can see out my window right now. And that, is attractive to people. The other lovely or not lovely thing for Colorado is that our cost of living is ridiculously high, which means our salaries tend to be a bit higher, which is a bit of a challenge when you're physically here, but if you're remote, it might be lovely. So I think, we've all been, we're all faced with the challenge of competing with industry, and we just can't compete with the salaries. I mean, we can't compete with them either. That's not ever the way that it's going to go. The way that we try to compete more is on some of these things like the flexible work environments and the, and again, bigger than just remote working, because I think a lot of people are doing remote working. It's about the other things, the work-life balance, the taking the time in the middle of the day, the encouraging taking time off. I've never worked in industry, but I've gotten the sense that that's not always a thing that is pushed. And there's a lot of other benefits to working at universities or higher ed institutions that we try to tout with benefits and other opportunities, tuition benefits and things like that. So we really, like I said, we've still attracted some really good talent. And so I don't know if that's it or if it's just simply the mountains, but it's been working.
Arvind Gopu. Arvind, where are you from?
Hi, I'm at Indiana University. It's my first time in this call.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the great talk, Shelley. So it's a related question to what Tony was asking. It's still about funding. You have had a lot of turnover, a lot of movement, staff coming in, staff leaving. Did you have to deal with funding budget sweeps and funding crunches where you have funding, but somebody's like, oh, there's $500,000 there that hasn't been used, so maybe we can sweep it up and use this for this other? I mean, I'm just curious how you've navigated the funding part of this whole situation, as challenging as everything else you said is already.
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't, I haven't personally experienced the funding sweeps, although I know that that's a thing. We've been, we haven't lost the funding for any of the positions that we were, that for somebody who had left, and then, and largely that's because I think we were, as many groups are, we were very, we were doing a lot with a little, right? We were doing a ton with few staff members. So it would have been really hard, I think, for them being whoever is doing the funding sweeps to pull that money and for us to be able to continue to provide what we were providing. So we, and I have meetings with the other cabinet members of our central IT organization pretty regularly, and we talk about all of the staffing changes that we're individually having and about where those financial shifts may have to take place. And so I think that openness helps a lot too. The cabinet members being very clear, and the CIO, my boss, being clear about, you know, where the budget numbers are going is helpful. So I can't say that we've had issues with that, and we've had some investments from the university to bring on some of these new services, or some shifts that occurred where I mentioned our cloud team had moved from a different entity in our central IT organization to ours, but that was very much a collaborative conversation that happened with the director of that organization and trying to figure out what would make sense. It wasn't, you know, now we're going to do this. It was a conversation that we had and decided on, not unilaterally. So I can't say that we've experienced that too much.
Thank you.
Okay, great. There's a couple of good comments in the chat everybody should check out, but I think we're going to move on here to Kim Wong from University of Pittsburgh and get his point of view on what worked in his staffing issues.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation, opportunity to talk. This is my first time in this meeting. It's good to see you, Patrick. Patrick Smith, I see him at CARCC, and his presentations and his contributions during the CARCC meeting, very thoughtful, and I learned a lot when you were involved with CARCC. It's good to see you again. So let me start off. So basically, what's shown here in the slide is just the end product. So let me give a context. I am Kim Wong, University of Pittsburgh, co-director, Center for Research Computing. I've been in this role officially for about a year, interim for about half a year. And my background, where I'm coming from is I have a PhD in chemical physics. So started off in this field from grad school, essentially. I did theory from equations to implementation to coding. I got to graduate. So, there's a INPACI summer workshop over in San Diego Supercomputing Center. So I applied for that. They said, yeah, come down and we'll pay for your plane ticket and we'll house you in the student dorms over the summer. You can't beat that, right? So basically I went, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is my code was not fast and I need to speed it up in order to graduate. And so I went down there and it was great. A great experience. First exposure to advanced computing. Jay Brousseau, I believe, was the director at the time. Came back and didn't use it, okay? I just used brute force to finish up my PhD. But then when I did my postdoc, I was involved with Amber molecular dynamics. So that's one of the premier molecular dynamics code. And in there, one of the implementations I was putting in there was for MPI, okay? And I didn't know what I was doing. But Tom Cheatham was part of the team that was doing the development. So Tom showed me, what the views are, what the global picture is. And then from then on, I just read up and did, what every student does, which is train yourself. So my background is highly in the research side and research facing. And when I came to University of Pittsburgh in 2008, there was a Center for Simulation and Modeling. That was the precursor to CRC, Center for Research Computing. So Center for Research Computing was the upgrade of the initial center. But when I was in the initial center, I am research facing support. So software installation, help people train the users to use our resources, work with their PBS script, and well, we upgraded some now. And so that is my background, and that's what I bring. So when the center became from Center for Simulation and Modeling transitioned to Center for Research Computing, Ralph Roskis took over. Ralph Roskis was the director of, one of the co-directors of the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center. He retired from that along with Mike. And then he came to University of Pittsburgh and was directing the Center for Research Computing. When Ralph retired, I took over as interim co-director, and then Adam Hobaugh was the other co-director. He's from Pitt IT. So that's my background. CRC, we are under the Office of Research. And so there is, I asked at CASC, what's the distribution? And roughly it's 50-50. Sometimes the Research Computing Center is under the CIO, other times it's under the Office of Research. We are under the Office of Research. My team, research facing, predominantly that's that. And then there's a sister team from the IT side that does the systems facing. So roughly about four FTEs for the research side. And then we pull in the infrastructure, networking, and security as needed. And then on our side, it's predominantly PhDs and PhDs in different areas, chemistry, physics, bioinformatics. And the reason why is because we want to have a diverse set of talents to cover the diverse research areas at the university. So that's where we are. Now, the issue that we have is, well, it's a bad and good problem. The good is people who go through our center, they have new opportunities and they take it, okay? The bad is they take the new opportunity and then we lose the skill set. So how do you deal with that? There's lack of institutional knowledge, and then we are, as a team, we're not redundant. So, I have my expertise, my colleague Fong Ping has his own expertise, and there would be maybe 25% overlap. But beyond that, everyone is unique. And so if someone leaves, there's a big hole. And the question is, how do we deal with that? And I have the most institutional knowledge because I was there since 2008, but there's only so much I can do, okay? And so basically we had a new hire from physics and he said, yeah, I'm happy. Can you tell me, where's your onboarding material? Let me get started. And I said, yeah, it's in my head. And so it's like, okay, so thank you for asking. And thank you for telling us that you're great with GitHub and you use version control for all the development that you do with your community. And he's in astrophysics, he's in astronomy. So he does all the large data, collecting all the survey data and providing resources to do the analysis on astronomical data. So he's very good with GitHub. And so thank you for telling us that. And thank you for volunteering for doing our onboarding material. Let's get started. So let's talk about, let's call them SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. And SOP is what I first encountered back in undergraduate. Reed College has a research reactor, and I did some work study at the research reactor. And basically, SOP is binders of standard operating procedures, one for each incident. So if there's a radioactive gas leak into the community, there's an SOP for that. And basically, we have drills, and we go through the SOP, make sure we follow and we practice. Okay, so standard operating procedures, GitHub. What do? Let's document everything that we do, and then from now on, it will live in GitHub. And it's great because we have versions. We can go use the facility to have people can make pull requests after they make changes, and then you can do approvals, and everything is there. The great thing about GitHub is there's also a sister thing called Pages. And what you write up, you can see it as a website, okay? So we have, and we're building up a standard procedure so that as a center as an institution, we have the knowledge about how we set everything up. So that's one component. The other component is every center has their own internal software, internal scripts. You collaborate things together, it works well. GitHub, version control, refinement of your software stack, it's always there. Oh, and then we always hope that when we have everything cleaned up and it looks legit and we're not embarrassed by it, we'll make it public. So then we share it with the community as well. So, so the idea of turnover, losing institutional knowledge, how do you fill that in? How do you provide the institutional knowledge so that when you have a new hire, they can say, oh, okay, thank you. I can get started and start reading and well, I'll do my onboarding with what you already have, okay? So that is the solution. And then let me tell you about if it's working or not. We have a recent hire. He is remote, okay? The recent hire is remote. And he said, yeah, this SOP is great, but there are gaps and there are holes in there because I read it and there are parts that doesn't make any sense. And so what do I do? We have teams, so I make an appointment with them. So yeah, there's a ticket, let's work on it. It's tickets with Nick, okay? So that's on my calendar. And I press record. I record. And it said, you will shadow me and I will share my screen, my terminal, and I'll show you what it's done, how I do it, okay? And he said, okay, this is great. And then I said, what I want from you is take the recording, take the notes that you have taken, develop an SOP for what we just have done for the troubleshooting for one of the tickets. So he's adding to the SOP based on the fact that we're using technology, Teams and recording. It could be Zoom, record it, and he's doing it. And he's remote. So that's how we're doing the turnover. So let's go to the next slide and let me speak quickly about that. And then I'll go back to some of the questions about the staffing and providing flexible work environment and remote and things like that. Our community is diverse, similar to a lot of other centers. And the challenge that we have is that not everyone can open up a terminal and say, oh, I'm good to go. Thank you for the resources. If I have problems, I'll come to you, okay? A lot of our researchers are, yeah, my code it runs well on my laptop, but it's very slow. I'm hoping that there's some magic that you can just move it over and I can use the resources and I can finish my, my dissertation in a reasonable time. So what we have to do is, terminal is one access modality, okay? We leverage open on demand a lot. So, thanks to Ohio Supercomputing Center for the open on demand, and we provide a lot of portals through open on demand. And then we also have another web portal. We use Fastix, another web portal to provide a Linux desktop, and then Jupyter Hub. So the bottom line is meet your customers halfway. And when they see that it works, they will be your champion because what we found is when we provide these additional access modalities, researchers in psychiatry who does brain imaging, for example, they said, yeah, it works now. And they said, I'm going to talk to my colleagues and tell them it works, and I'll show them how to use it. So then you have a champion. These were the two slides I presented at CAS. So let me double back, and I'm looking at the time, and let me just maybe 2 or 3 minutes, double back about the hiring and the turnover, okay? So we experience the same challenges that everyone does. Primarily now we have competition. We meaning academic institutions have competition from industry. When I was in grad school, I remember there were a lot of quantum chemists who have to find a job outside of their field because there were no jobs. If you do any computing, it could be any domain, you have familiar with advanced computing, industry will go for you and you are useful, okay? So the things have changed where we have competition from industry, which have deeper pockets. So that's the challenge. And I think it's gonna be true from now on. it's the same problem that academic IT, so systems administration, people in IT, they face as well. There were the other co-director, Adam Hopal, he said, you know, Kim, what your guys are facing is what we faced about 10 years ago. We would have, you know, new graduates who come through our university, spend 3 years, and then experience, bam, they go into industry, and then we lose them. And so what did we do? Well, you know, what he said was, you know, I have a family, you have a family. If someone on our team who is a good worker, works hard, who provides when they're here, and they have a good opportunity and they leave, I'm happy for them, okay? So that's the perspective we're gonna have. So for Center for Research Computing, what we do is, and this is not new, for our team, we say, yeah, you know, please take 20% of your time to develop your own skill set. Please collaborate with existing researchers that you have, because the researchers at the University of Pittsburgh, we expect them to be the best. So if you collaborate with them, so basically you are honing your skills. You continue to hone your skills, develop your skills, okay? And when you come to us, we'll help you develop your skills. We have high expectations of your time here in terms of, you know, what you can deliver, and we'll train you up. And if opportunities come and you leave, you know, if you deliver, we're happy for you, okay? And so that's the perspective we're looking at. And with that being said, it's very hard to hire someone who has experience, because we cannot compete against industry. They can get a lot more money from industry, okay? So what we found is it's easier to hire a junior person and then train them up, and they welcome the opportunity to learn from the rest of the team. And I think roughly, like, if you get 3 years out of a colleague, you know, who join your team and say, yeah, and they later on get an opportunity and they leave, make sure the relationship is good, okay? If it's not good, then, you know, there's other things, but make sure it's good. And then, you know, when they leave, be happy for them. So that's kind of what we do. And then one last thing, I was very concerned about remote. And then I look back to the pandemic and what it forced upon the team. We've been remote and we've been effective, and everyone's working well remotely. And so, you know, don't be afraid, it works, but go back to your own experience and say, remote worked for me, therefore remote should work for new hires. I will have high expectations of them, and then let's see how it works, okay? And then lastly, flexible work environment. Because remote worked for us, formally what we said was, you can work remotely 3 days a week, and then, you know, come in if you like, as much as you want. And if you need more time, that's fine as well. And so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kim and Shelley, for bringing this. This has been a great discussion. Questions?
Everybody's just digesting all that information. It's so good.
There is one question on related SOPs. Does each service have an ops doc? I don't know what, I'm not familiar with what an ops doc is.
Mike, I think Mike Renfro posted that. Yep.
I did, and it's basically your SOP. But ops report card, I have been slowly trying to implement on our stuff. In terms of just trying to get better at onboarding, cross-training, everything else like that. But it's especially IT stuff, and maybe even especially research IT stuff, is very unofficial apprenticeship type stuff. You know, there's no training, there's no formal training programs. You know, you might go get a class on how to build a cluster somewhere if you're lucky, but a lot of this stuff, and maybe we're the idiots. I don't know. You know, I mean, locally.
Yeah, I think apprenticeship is the right perspective. And then in terms of the the SOP, there are different ways to deliver documentation. We standardize on GitHub because, so you can do it by wiki, and the wiki, I'm kind of hesitant. With GitHub, I'm not wasting someone's time, because if someone someone in my team has experience with version control, that is a plus skill set, okay? Mm-hmm. So use GitHub to learn the version control and so forth. And then on top of that, we love the Markdown, because copy and paste from your terminal using Markdown, you get the right formatting, and then it goes to Pages. So there's an automatic workflow for, you check it into the repository, and then I think there's a lag about maybe half an hour, 30 minutes. It will show up in the Pages as well. Okay, so that's kind of what we did. In terms of DevOps, we had our quarterly maintenance yesterday, and I have my SOP. We have an SOP for quarterly maintenance. I have it open, and then I went through, and then there are holes in there, and so we're going to refine it. And once we do that, I'm going to say, look, somebody else take over, and then make sure you follow the SOP. And then when you use it, you know it's your standard operating procedure.
I see an invite in your future to come back and share how your process with us, and actually the research facing group, I think. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do in this community, Kim and Shelley, so is to not recreate the wheel every time. So, that's those SOPs, anything like that we can then share broadly. So, us in emerging communities that have, in centers that have like maybe one full-time researcher facing person, if we can have, maybe we might hit you up for access to some of those as templates, if nothing else. I think that would be really useful. And so that's great. We are kind of ending up on time here, 2 minutes left. Next month we are, and I don't know if Patrick's still on here, but we're planning to invite Patrick and Schmidt and Doug Genuine to talk to us a little bit about the new track, which was policies and strategies. I can't remember.
Strategy and policy phasing, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. So we're hoping maybe you guys will come in and kind of give us the little plug of what you're going to be talking about, because we do think it overlaps a lot, which we've talked about, amongst our co-coordinators, and then have that discussion in May, and then in June we're going to do another topic survey to identify what topics we want to talk about and what people want to see here over the next year, kind of like what we did last year. So I think that's a good time then, May, to talk about what you guys are doing, and then we can kind of decide what people want to see, and we'll want everybody's input, obviously, of what topics you want to be brought to this community over the next year. So I think that's about it for today. Rich, did you have anything, or does anybody have any? I liked Scotty's comment, or didn't like it, but I agree with it, that people coming from industry and working at higher ed or vice versa, it's very difficult when you have lots of roadblocks and things move very slow. So that's something that maybe the policies, or maybe the other, that group can help us affect some change there. So I think that's it for this month.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining.
Signing off. Yep.
We'll
Thanks.
see you next month.
Discussion.
Back's always welcome.
Every week.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Arvind.